Okay, good afternoon everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this afternoon's webinar. My name is Alan Cowie. I'm from the New Anglia Growth Hub. We provide free support for businesses, growing businesses in Norfolk and Suffolk. Thank you once again, Barclays, who are supporting this series of webinars. And if you want to speak to any of the business banking team, then do let us know and we'll put you in touch. In a moment, I'm going to introduce today's presenter, but I would like to just firstly tell you what we've got coming up. So today we're going to be talking about business planning. Next month we've got a session from Barclays who are going to be giving you a real insight into what they are actually looking for when they are lending money to businesses. Our very own Dr. Morgan Potter will then run through R&D tax credits the following month. And we've just confirmed a session with the Intellectual Property Office who are going to be talking about all areas of IP from patents to registered designs and trademark and copyright. So join us if you can for any of those sessions. So we move on and today you could be here because you're looking to set up a business and want some help with business planning. You might be already running a business and are looking to review your current plan, or you might be seeking some funding, investment or support, but it could just be that you're just interested to hear what's going to be said today. So without further ado, I'm going to launch our poll just to see who we've got on the call. So if you could just tick which one applies to you. We did have a number of students, I believe, joining as well for today's call. So if you all just fill that in now and we'll see what we've got. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see the results, but we've got about 40% building on an existing plan, about a quarter starting a new business, and we've got some people just interested to see what's going to be said today. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce our guest today, which is Richard Voisey, who is a business consultant at the enterprise agency NWES. Richard, good afternoon to you, sir. I'm just going to allow you to speak. There we go.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me along this afternoon to talk about business plans. What I find quite interesting is over the years, having met hundreds and hundreds of people of my 14 years working in enterprise who are looking to start a business, is when I'm asking them about when they've actually started or plan to start, they often look into the future. But I feel that the first step to actually starting a business is the actual planning process. And that's the most important part, because it really is the cornerstones that will actually set out how you plan to set up this successful business. And the aim of today's webinar is to look at the outline of what a business plan is, the actual physical elements of that business plan, what it does and what it's out to achieve. Also to look at how to explain the purpose of a business plan. Why should you invest time completing this plan? And finally, some direction in terms of what should be included. And on that point, you will have the opportunity to receive a copy of a templated business plan if that will help you to complete one. Thoughts and ideas. Why are you listening today? What are you actually looking for? There are so many things that we could do or may like to do. And life for me is a journey, and it's about achievement and enjoyment, and hopefully within your personal life and your business life you will achieve and you'll produce results and you'll have aims and objectives, and hopefully along the way, which is the reason why a lot of people start up businesses, is because they've got a passion about something, they enjoy something, and they want to actually earn money from that passion. So it may be something that you quite simply like to do that you're going to take into a business venture, or it could be something where there's an opportunity to make profit and you can adapt through the skills experience that you've got to be able to achieve that. So what do you want to achieve and what success are you looking for? So with a blank piece of paper or a blank business plan, you really need to think about what you want to do. Where are you now and where do you want to be when it comes to looking at achievement? And that's about setting some aims and objectives, and that principally is what the business plan is about. Setting your journey from where you are to where you want to be in the future. And generally business plans are set for a 12 12-month period, although you can go beyond 12 months if it's appropriate to your business. But certainly it's about focus in terms of your journey over the next 12 months. What will success look like for you? It could be about cash, it could be about the profitability of the business, or it could also be about personal achievements, or a mixture of the two that will help you to signify that you're looking at something which is going to be a successful plan. So when we look at the business plan purpose, it's there to tell your story. And over the years I've had examples of where business plans have been written by other people for my client, and that really isn't the way forward, because they can never tell the story how you can, because it's about your vision and your passion about what you want to achieve rather than through somebody else's eyes and words. And it's certainly a guide to achieving results. It's often said that if you do not have a plan, you are less likely to succeed. And really, really important is that you actually review that plan. It's not something that you then produce and then pop onto a shelf to forget once you actually start your business. It's really, really important that it becomes an absolute living document and something that you will review year on year. Also, there is a perception that actually a business plan is for other people, and it could be for lenders, somebody who's going to look at your idea and decide whether to invest. And that could be the case, but I would suggest in every single example that we all write a business plan for ourselves, and secondly, we potentially might use it for other people to review your plans. We are going to have a look at the business plan contents, but what I'd like to do is talk to you about an acronym that was actually used in the 1970s by the banking institutions, and really things haven't changed too much, but it's called Campari, which is an exotic drink, but basically it stands for character, ability, means, purpose, amount, repayment, and insurance. And these were a set of terms that were used by bankers when sitting in front of potential people looking to start or run businesses who are looking for money. And these are some of the things that I'd like you to think about when you complete your business plan. So if you think about character, who are you? What is your driving mechanism? What skills, what experience have you got? What knowledge have you got that is going to bring you success with your business? And it's important to think about whether you've got any strengths, what gaps you've got, and how you're going to deal with them, and how your person who's actually going to be lending you the money will see within your business plan and yourself, if you meet them, in terms of how confident you are as a character to run this business. Because if you've got doubts, generally they will be plucked from the business plan and also from any meeting that you might have with them. So the presentation of yourself and your business plan is really important to make sure that it is a professional one. You need to show that you are a business leader in your field, because you'll be driving yourself and potentially you might be driving other people. And that could be people within your organization if you're employing people, or it could be people around you. It could be other suppliers, it could be the customers that you're going to drive. Anybody who's involved in the business who'll be looking for you to lead them through the process of you executing your business activity. And your character is going to be made up of a number of things. It could be made up of your CV, it also could be made up of your trading history if you're currently running a business. So a personal history of you and the journey that you've been through to give confidence about your character to actually borrow money. And if you are trading, then trading history as well, to identify that there's been success in the past, which is likely to mean there's be success in the future. So one of the things that lenders look for is some form of history to give them confidence that they want to work with you again, because past performance is often the judge of future performance. And it's worth thinking about that in respect of how you run your life. How organized and structured are you? Where do you keep your records? How good are you at running your own finances? Because if you've got any concerns with how you might manage your personal life, then those sort of things may well come across within your business plan when you are pitching to somebody to lend you money. So that's looking at the character. Have a little bit of thought about who you are and how you might be perceived by anybody looking to lend. So we looked at character. The next one to have a look at is ability. What abilities have you got to run this business? Again, knowledge, skills and experience. What do you actually need the capital for? How much can you afford as a repayment? So I've had the opportunity to meet clients for the first time, and I've asked them a straightforward question: how much are you looking to borrow? And maybe they're not sure, and that gives me doubts, because it would suggest that you haven't adequately researched what exactly you want and how much you want, and you need to be sure about that. And also the consequences of that are the repayment side of it, and they should therefore be reflected in your financial paperwork, and in particular your cash flow. In respect to your ability, we're also looking at the return on investment. So if you invest money into something, what's the return going to be? We also need to look at the means. And by this, I'm looking at you planning professionally presented business plan which is logical. Do you know adequate knowledge about your industry and your target markets? And is your business going to be a viable one? And can you produce a return for your investment? So the means to be able to actually run the business effectively and produce adequate profit. And why do you actually want the money? Might sound a strange one, but it's an obvious question to ask. Why do you need the money, and how are you going to use it? So again, within your plan, you need to be really clear about what the investment is going to be used for, and give a good business case in terms of how it's going to add value to the business. It could be maybe an order that you're looking to fulfill. It could be a specific piece of machinery. It could be methods about how you expect to expand your products and services that you offer. It could be used for marketing purposes to help encourage more interest and sales opportunities. So then it's about the amount. Why do you need the amount that you're asking for? It needs to be realistic. And how have you arrived at the figure, and how is it going to be spent? And as I said earlier, it's then about repayments. So you must be able to meet the payment terms. And how can you justify that? What profit margins are you looking to provide for your business? Have you produced an effective cash flow forecast? And it's really important that you don't exaggerate. So it needs to be realistic but also challenging. And finally, looking at Campari, we look at insurance. So there can be physical insurances such as policies, but it's really about the insurance for the lender in terms of your capability to deliver the business and to repay the returns on the loan. And also it's about having a backup plan as well, because potentially things may not go to plan, and there might be circumstances that maybe haven't been researched or couldn't be accounted for, and potentially they might come into play, and then it's a question of how you actually react to them. And if you can foresee potential issues that might come up, you can then work within your plan methods of how you might deal with them if they do happen to take place. How you might potentially diversify any revenue streams that you might have planned. So the first part of a business plan is about the front cover and the contents and list page. It's a little bit like selling a house and having a freshly painted front door. It's the first impression. So if you've got a business, presumably you would actually design some form of logo and a strap line to back up that logo to really enforce what the business is all about. Really important to give that first impression. The next significant page to a business plan is the executive summary, an idea summary. And this is something that an investor would look at before going into the detail of the plan. It's a one-page document, and what it does is give an overview of the key points. So by reading this first page, the reader should be able to have a real good overview in terms of what the business is about. It should include an idea summary. So the first paragraph would explain what the business is about, what it's attempting to do and how it's going to do it. The second paragraph is the outline summary of the market. So it's an overview of the state of the market, and hopefully it's a growing one, which is going to give you opportunities. The third element is about the operation summary, which gives a picture in terms of how the business will operate on a day-to-day basis. Does it operate as an online business? Does it work from a premises? Is it a 7-day operation? Maybe a real basic outline in terms of the process of the customer journey. And finally, the fourth paragraph of this page is an executive financial summary, which will outline key elements from your financial planning. How much money do you want to borrow? What do you expect the turnover to be for the business? What do you expect your net profit to be for the business? And if you're looking for a loan, what you're looking for the loan for. You can actually produce that executive summary once you've produced the whole plan, because you could then draw from the detail your cover. We then look at the personal section, which is about you, but it's also about key people within the business. So it could include your CV if you're looking to employ people or employ people. You could, and they're key people, you would include their CVs. It gives an indication to the lender that there's expertise, knowledge and experience within the business. If you happen to be just the sole person within that business and you don't employ anybody, you could still have key people. These could be people who you might be using within the business, such as consultants, accountants, any form of work that you might be buying in expertise to help you drive the business. Also within this section, you might look at producing a SWOT analysis. That SWOT analysis will list your strengths, your weaknesses, your personal opportunities and threats that you might have on a personal basis. And it really is an opportunity for you to open up and also to think about aspects of how you are going to run the business and those things that potentially could be a weakness or a threat that you might need to develop to make yourself a more rounded business person. You can take it a step further with some pest analysis, where you start to look at political issues that could affect the business, economical issues, sociological issues, and also technological issues as well that could affect the performance of the business. But within this section, it's also about your personal aims and objectives. Why are you doing what you want to do? There could be some real strong reasons why you're setting up this business, because you might want to be master of your own destiny, you might want to set up something as a legacy for your family in future, but there's those sort of things that are going to provide an insight in terms of the motivations, in terms of why you are setting up this business, and that will also help the lender incredibly. The business plan contents then moves on to the legal side, including health and safety. And it's really important to sit down, look at the business and research to establish what are the actual legal things which you are compelled to make sure that you honour, and those things which potentially might have an effect on your business that you might want to have cover for. So there could be general legal issues in relation to, as an example, if you run a haulage company and the fact that you need to have a license to be able to run a haulage company. There could be basic legal issues such as insurances. There are some insurances which are obligatory and those which potentially you might want to take out when you look at the risk of that particular cover and then the costs that might affect your cash flow. And there's also health and safety issues, because you have a duty of care to yourself, to anybody that you employ, to suppliers, and also the general public, to ensure that everybody is kept safe. We now move on to the financials. Sorry, we're going to move on to market research and the marketing plan. There are three elements to marketing. The first is the research, which is what you intend to do. Finding out about your customers, about your products, about your services, and about the marketplace. Really, really important for you to be able to justify in your business plan that you know enough about your market, that it's been adequately researched. And that could be primary research or secondary research. Primary research would be what you do. These could be on-street questionnaires, it could be surveys that you might produce online, talking to customers, also looking at competitors, your own market research that you've produced. From a secondary market research perspective, it's important that you look at other people's research that they've carried out so that you form an even stronger opinion in terms of the state of the market, to be able to make a judgment that you, with your products and your services, can make an indent into that marketplace and produce sales. Once you've produced all this research, you then combine that into some analysis. Analysis will be, it could be percentages or numbers that will then draw the key information from the research you've carried out to justify again to the lender that you know your marketplace. And once you've got that, and if you know enough about your competition, you know enough about your customers and potential customers, you can then produce a marketing plan. That marketing plan within the business plan provides you with a journey to actually capture those customers. It will be a promotional timetable that will be dated, and it will be task set, and hopefully it will have some expectations in terms of what you want from that marketing. Whether you are going to launch a website, whether you are going to do some mail shots, whether you are going to set up a sales team, whether you're going to do some press advertising, the whole mixture of initiatives that will help you to communicate, to build relationships with your prospective customers and hopefully turn them into customers. And then hopefully further along, clients, where they actually come back to you, and then ultimately to advocates where they start to sell on your behalf. The financials. There are a number of different elements to setting up the financials for this business plan, and we actually kick off with a survival budget. This is about your personal income and expenditure, how much it costs you to run your household, because that will give an indication in terms of whether you need to draw money from the business. We then move into startup costs. How much money will you need to start the business? And this is going to become really relevant to you from the point of view of lenders and why you're asking for money. You need to again thoroughly research to establish what it is that you want to buy, from which supplier, and how much it's going to cost. And it's also really important to add some contingency into this figure as well, and I'd recommend at least 10%, because when you actually start to purchase the goods or services, there could be some variable pricing changes, and that could affect you whether you've got enough money or not. Once we've got the startup costs, we move on to the sales forecast. Probably one of the hardest documents to produce in my experience for new business startups, but based on your market research and your analysis, you should have a real firm idea in terms of your capabilities of what sales you're likely to produce, for which products and which services, and when it's likely to happen, because often the seasonality. Once you've got your sales forecast, it will help you to produce a cash flow forecast. The cash flow forecast shows the money that should come in from the sales, when the actual money is likely to be paid, because you might offer credit terms, and you might also have cash terms as well. Also, your expenditure that you're going to use to actually drive those sales, and within that you will show your repayments for any loans that you're looking to actually acquire, and they'll need to be in there as well. And ultimately that will produce analysis, a cash flow analysis at the bottom, and that will show you that if your plan runs as intended, how much cash you should have in your bank account month by month. We then move on to the profit and loss account, the forecasted amount of money that you hope to receive in sales, and then the cost of generating those sales. And that should give you a bottom line figure that says, if my plan works to fruition, this is the amount of money I look to make after my first year of trading, and your cash flow will indicate that you should also have money in your bank month by month to be able to run the business on a day-to-day basis. We then move on to the business operations summary, and this is something quite often which not enough time is spent on, but this will actually give a platform and procedure and structure about how the business will operate on a daily basis. So an example would be that if you've got a website, and you take inquiries, how do you manage those inquiries? How do you respond back to customers? What message do you provide? How do you back that up? Do you send a proposal? Do you go out to visit the customer? If you visit the customer, do you have a format again in the structure you take the customer through? When do you bank your money? How do you keep your records? So spend time to research and come up with a plan in terms of how the business will operate. And contingency. What happens if the business doesn't go to plan? If you can't repay your loan, what are you going to do about it? Really, really important to look at it now. The first step of writing this plan, because it will help you and guide you in terms of what the options might be available to you. So you can either reduce or eradicate that issue in relation to the what if. And finally, some personal reflections, just to finish off the plan in terms of why you're doing it and what you're looking to achieve for the business. I've got some hints and tips for you. Just consider this as a route map or sat-nav, and is it fit for purpose? Does it fit your initial aims and objectives that you set before you started to write this plan? If you produce this information and you produce it in a structured format within the relevant headings, it will give you absolute clarity, and it will also aid in empowerment. It will give you the confidence to take your plan forward. And that's a real positive element of writing a plan, because it will guide you and give you the assurance that you've done adequate research and you know the way that you're going to run the journey that you're going to take. It should help your ideas to become more physical by putting them down to paper, because it's a personal commitment, and therefore it'll make it a lot more motivating for you. And when you write the plan, make sure you write it in the active voice rather than the passive voice. This is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to work, because that's really important to show that you are looking in a positive sense. And make sure you use it as a live document that you can keep, save, implement, review, and work again. Produce a set of actuals against your forecasting once you start to actively run your business, because it will help you to review and then set the plan for your second year. Just remember that the only time success becomes before work is in the dictionary. So make sure that you put the work into it, because what you put in is what you're going to get out. And the more thorough and professional and dedicated and desirable your business plan, the more likely you're going to drive yourself, and people will be driven around you. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my webinar today.
Thank you very much, Richard. We'll go to some questions. So if you have a question, you should see a little button that looks like a hand. So if you hit the raise your hand button, if you have a question for Richard, and then we'll come to you. First of all, quick question that's come in though is about pricing. How do you price your product?
In terms of pricing, you've got a number of options available to you. I think the first one to look at is market value. Within your market research, you should have looked at your competition. You should be able to look at the pricing that your competition are charging, and where you're going to place yourself into the market on the basis that are you going to be at the low end, the high end, or somewhere in between. If you take high street clothing as an example, are you going to be the John Lewis, or are you going to be the Primark? They both sell clothing, but they both pitch to different markets. So the market that you're going to operate in, what are they charging? And then maybe you can backtrack and look at your costs of running the business, and then be able to justify whether within your costs you can market yourself at that particular price. Another way of doing it is cost plus pricing, where you work out how much it's going to cost for you to run your business and sell your products and services, and then add a profit line to it. Because whilst you're doing all this, and dependent upon how many sales you're going to make, you need to go back to your personal survival budget to make sure that you can actually produce adequate profit from that to justify you running your household.
What about, you talked about market research. How do you go about doing that? I mean, the obvious step first of all is to ask friends and family, but I guess sometimes they might give you the answers that you want to hear, not necessarily what you need to hear.
Absolutely. If you are speaking to or communicating with people who don't know you, they are absolutely more likely to be objective rather than subjective in the responses that they give. And for that reason, it is great for you to actually develop your business and social networks as much as you possibly can, because that's a good thing in business anyway, to collect people, because the more people you know, the more opportunities you can have in life, and also the more opportunities for you to market your business and for more people to be aware of it. But really make sure that you spread your wings as much as you possibly can. It might be about getting out into the high street, it might be about taking part and joining in with other organizations, social groups and business groups whereby you can network with people and ask them questions. And it's great if you can produce some form of questionnaire which is logical and objective, whereby you can ask some straightforward questions that are going to give you some yes or no answers, which you could then push out into the marketplace and produce some analysis from that.
Thank you, Richard. Before we go, the handout from today's available. If you just save the handout to your work area, you can do that as a PDF available. I'm just going to throw it over to you one last time, opportunity to ask any questions for Richard. So if not, we'll say thank you very much and good afternoon.